Hello, Kyle here. I am here to review the new Game of Thrones TV series, House of the Dragon, and it just premiered on HBO tonight. And I gotta just say it, this is the best episode of television I've seen this year, and this is by far the best premiere for a series I've seen since Lovecraft Country that premiered back in 2020. I was riveted and captivated by this first episode of House of the Dragon, and it's for various reasons. One reason being I love Game of Thrones, and I not only love the series, but most importantly, I really love the novels. They are some of my favorite novels, and I actually began to learn about Game of Thrones by reading those novels. I would imagine myself as the characters, I would imagine myself going on those adventures, and it is truly some of the best fiction I have read. I love the TV series of Game of Thrones. The first season of Game of Thrones did an incredible job at capturing the novel, and the following seasons did the same. I know many people were unhappy with the final season of Game of Thrones. I enjoyed it for the most part. There were some issues I had, but that is for another day. Now we get to House of the Dragon, which is a prequel series. And I think that this is definitely going to be, given if it keeps up the same quality, this will most likely be one of the best prequels done because it is far separated from Game of Thrones. You don't have to know about Game of Thrones in order to enjoy House of the Dragons. The characters are different, the timeline is different, and it's not even tied into Game of Thrones. It's not like The Hobbit, where it's about the ring from Lord of the Rings, or, even Fantastic Beasts, where it's about the characters like Dumbledore and Grindelwald. These are characters that are in Harry Potter that you kind of have to know beforehand going into Fantastic Beasts. This is an entirely different thing, and all of these characters are so interesting and complex. The standouts, there were so many great performances from the entire cast, but Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra Targaryen, star-defining performance right here. I expect her to be making waves in, film and television in the future. She is mesmerizing as Rhaenyra. She is, I would say, what Emilia Clarke brought to the character of Daenerys back in season 1 of Game of Thrones. She has all this heart, and she has all of this strength to her character that I can see many young women, many young adults being so attracted to with just Millie's performance alone. Then you get to Matt Smith as Daemon Targaryen, her uncle. He is amazing. I have been a fan of Matt Smith beforehand, but most of the projects I've seen him in have been, shall we say, a bit weak. I saw him in Last Night in Soho, which I thought he was really good in, though. So when it comes to this performance, I thought he gave it his heart and soul, and he really makes Daemon a character that is quite complicated. And he can be a villain, but at times you can somewhat sympathize him. All great villains believe themselves to be the hero, and that's what I think Daemon Targaryen believes. You have Paddy Considine as the king, Viserys. He's great. His relationship with both Rhaenyra and Daemon, his brother and his daughter, are fascinating. I love the relationships in this show. One of my most favorite relationships that I've seen on TV, I think, is the relationship between Sir Otto Hightower, played by Rhys Ifans, and Matt Smith's Daemon Targaryen. I think that their conflict is going to be so delicious to behold, and just this episode alone shows their, bitter resentment towards each other. And I love how in this episode we get to see Daemon kind of try and one-up him at the tourney, with his children, and I love it. The dragons, phenomenal. The special effects and visual effects on the show, phenomenal. They use the volume in this show, and I think they use it really well. Ramin Djawadi's score, amazing. I mean, it's Ramin Djawadi, the man that created Game of Thrones music and Westworld, and he brings his themes back, but then he adds a great theme at the end. And I think one of the things I really do love, and this is something that some people won't be able to relate to because they haven't read the book, but this book is based off of Fire and Blood. The original, basically it's like the history book of Game of Thrones, what happened before the story, and it's what this show is based off of. At least a small portion of the book is what this show is based off of. And I think they do an incredible job at adapting it, but they really stay true to the history. And I know George R. R. Martin had his hands on the show. He was involved in producing it, and you can tell because they really stay true to his vision, and they stay true to the book. And there are lines taken out. One line regarding Daemon's wife. Backgrounds of characters are present. And just knowing, as from what I've read of the novel, knowing where this story is going just gets me really excited for what's to come. I also have to say that I'm glad to see that, at least from what I've seen, more positivity around Game of Thrones, because, I mean, sure, it's fun. It's totally fine if, you didn't like the final season of Game of Thrones. But the fan base became so toxic and negative that it's great to see it kind of becoming back to the heights of where the show was prior to the final season. And I mean, even the seasons prior to that had their own mixed word of mouth. So I'm just glad to see a lot of people, what I've been seeing, excited about the show. And I'm hoping that this show gets a lot of people on board. And also, if you're watching this review and you haven't seen Game of Thrones, you don't have to see it. This show does a great job at telling its own story, and I think that a lot of people might watch this show and get into Game of Thrones. I already have a friend of mine I know that is saying that she wants to watch Game of Thrones because of this show. So I think that that will help, and I just can't wait to see what other people think. Let me know, did you watch House of the Dragon? Are you a Game of Thrones fan? Are you a fan of the books? Let me know what you thought below, and thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.